Welcome back to Good Days and Special Times. This is J.C. DeLass here with Gary Mervis, the founder of Camp Good Days, and two very special guests here from Monroe County. The Monroe County Sheriff Patrick O'Flynn joining us, and also the Monroe County Undersheriff Drew Forsythe is here. So my first question is, who's minding the store? I got the top two dogs right here.
Yeah, well, we've got the inmates under control, but no, things are good.
We're glad to have you both here, and again, taking time out of your busy schedules both to be here. Gary, before the break, we were talking a little bit about the next steps for Project Exile, and I know your office very busy right now implementing some of these new steps, and a lot of that has to do with getting the word out about Project Exile.
Well, it's perfect timing because Rochester is now going to start to get some nice warm weather, and when you have warm weather, people start to congregate out on the streets. They need to cool off, so they have a few extra beers, and then you have all the things when there are a lot of guns out there, and especially those guns wind up in the hands of people who had lost their right to legally possess one. You have problems, and crime tends to go up in the hot weather and in the summer, and so we want to get the message out there that in this community we take that seriously, and if you're going to be caught in possession of a gun that you've lost your right to legally possess, and sometimes more often than not drugs, that we're gonna take it seriously. And the law enforcement at the local, state, and federal level is working together. And that's one of the unique things about our community is the cooperation and the collaboration that exists. And it's one of the things that, obviously I have a lot to do, and I retired from the state in 1994, but I still work 70 hours a week. Yeah. And the reality is because I truly believe in this program because, the homicide rate in our community has never gone back to what it was the year before we brought Project Exile to the Rochester community. And now, because of the change in the White House with President Trump and his choice for the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. Those are two people that believe in Project Exile and have even talked about Project Exile as a way of bringing the federal government to some communities around the country where they need help. And the nice thing about Project Exile is that it's not adding new laws. It's taking existing laws and trying to have the resources to enforce those laws.
And getting the word out so important too, Gary. And I know driving around town, I've seen the billboards.
Well, there's going to be some new ones
right.
up, and we just did a new brochure, and we're going to be getting out there, and we're going to try to get maybe the Attorney General here for our anniversary breakfast or luncheon that we have each year. In September. So.
We'll keep an eye out for that. Sheriff O'Flynn, I mentioned, is here, and you've been involved with Project Exile really right from the beginning when you were Undersheriff. Talk about your experiences with it and why it was so important for you to get involved.
Well, it's obviously an incredible collaborative when you bring both the public and the private sectors together and get some of the best minds in the community like Gary Mervis here to be able to get the word out to people and to be able to address the problems. We were seeing so many homicides in the city of Rochester primarily, and since we were able to get the word out about Project Exile, and the word is constantly, even now, among the inmates in jail, you hear them, if they know they got caught with guns and drugs, that they're going to be sent away, and they're not going to be coming back. They're not going to have the visitation that they get here when their families are around. They're going to be shipped to somewhere else, and they don't want that to happen.
We had the FBI in the segment just before, and a big focus is the collaborative effort. And I know, Sheriff O'Flynn, you feel the same way, that having that collaboration, whether it's with the FBI, whether it's with the district attorney's office, all the different parts of this machine, if you will, everybody's got to be moving in the same direction, and you've got that with Project Exile.
Absolutely. It's a great collaborative, and everybody gets a chance to discuss issues, and we've been bringing in everyone from our crime prevention officers now to the meetings to be able to, again, get the word out and see what they can bring to the table to be able to inform the communities.
We've got the Undersheriff here as well, Drew Forsythe. And Drew, for you, how did you get involved with Project Exile?
Well, when I first got involved, it's been about 10 years when I first met Gary and went to my first meeting, and I gotta tell you that you walk into a room with all these people from every from state, local, federal agencies, as well as community partners, to sit around a table and actually share ideas, to go over what they think is best to serve the community. At first, it was a little overwhelming, and you see how Gary runs the meeting, and this project is one of the longest standing programs in the country, and it's because of people like Gary and the ability for us to sit around a table with familiar faces where we actually recognize and know one another. It makes it that much easier to try and to move the initiative forward.
And you can see results too, right, Drew? I mean, there are measurable results from participating in this program.
There really are. The number of guns taken off the street, as well as the number of homicides, the reduction in homicides over the years. And within our community, we all work so closely together. Personal friends of mine, the sheriffs within the Rochester Police Department, the FBI, where you can sit and talk, and there's no egos in the room. And I think that's the biggest thing. There are absolutely no egos. It's one common goal, one common mission, and it's Gary's the driver of the train, and it's all of us working together with the partners in the community.
I think, too, it's important to point out, Sheriff, that we're talking about getting illegal guns off the streets. I think anytime you talk about guns, there's a certain segment that gets very nervous because, unfortunately, it's either misinterpreted or whatever you want to say. But, people say, oh, they're going to come take my guns. And that's not what this program is about.
Absolutely not. In fact, I've been in law enforcement for many years, so I'd say over 30. And
you're a young guy. You can't be 30. Come on,
right,
now.
Exactly. But I can count on one hand the number of homicides in our county that have occurred with legal weapons. The rest are all been illegal guns. So, people don't have to worry. If you're a legal gun owner, we obviously want people to be aware of the fact that we don't want to see their guns stolen and such. And in fact, we've even been working with the funeral homes to get the word out to them for people pass away and they have handguns. Family members don't know what to do with them, and we put out brochures at all the funeral homes to be able to make sure that they don't become illegal guns.
And that's part of it right there, Drew, that I think people forget is there are so many different ways that illegal guns end up in the wrong hands. And there's just one way right there, going through funeral homes. That's got to, your plate's already full, but that's got to just stack another layer on top of it, too.
Exactly right. When it comes to the guns, like particularly in the counties, there's a lot of legal gun owners living out in the county that, where we have burglaries, where the legally owned guns are then taken and then used for crimes in the city. And so that's the message that we try to get out to our communities, that, it's not the legally owned owners of the handguns. It's how these guns get in the wrong hands. And so we try and educate through crime prevention community services about proper ways to store your guns. If you're going to be out of town, things of that nature. And then when people pass away, what do I do with my guns? I don't want guns. I don't have them. And in the past, people would just they would be left in the house and unattended, and then they become crime guns as a result of that.
Right. Well, and it's interesting you point that out, because I remember when my father passed away, and he had an old shotgun that back in the day you could shoot at woodchucks in your backyard and nobody would yell at you. And we're going back a long time now. But I remember all of us, my brothers and sisters, looking at each other going, well, what are you going to do? I don't know. Do you want to? What are we going to do with that? And at a larger level, that happens now. But we're not just talking about, old woodchuck shooting shotguns. We're talking about, as you said, guns that end up on the streets to do bad things.
You're right. That's the biggest problem that we're seeing in the county. It's, the guns that end up in the wrong hands that are legally owned and create the problems.
Gary, tell me about Project Tips and how this all kind of fits in together with Project Exile.
Well, it actually got started as part of Project Exile. Was really after that woman had been beaten to death on the corner of Dewey and Driving Park. And I was having breakfast with then Police Chief David Moore, and everyone was frustrated why nobody came forward with any information. And so I just said to him, I said, why don't we do like the fire department does during National Fire Prevention Week? Why don't we announce we're going to go knock on every door in the adjacent community and let people, if they know something, share without worrying about who gave the information. And he liked the idea, and then we expanded it to where we would, have a short questionnaire that people could respond to, and then invite them to come to a staging area where we would have food and music, and various social service agencies could actually set up tables, because in a lot of these communities, people didn't have access to computers, and if they did, they wouldn't know how to use them. And so yet there was a lot of services or information out there that they could take advantage of if they knew where they go. So now, thanks to the University of Rochester, we have people that are willing to look at kids' teeth, vision, as well as other programs that are out there that the police department brings its child fine unit, so mothers can register their children. So if God forbid something happens, their child will be registered. The fire department brings their firehouse to show young people what to do if God forbid they find themselves in a place where there is a fire. Most importantly, it gives the children that come an opportunity to interact with men and women in uniform who are really charged with their public safety. But unfortunately, the only time they would ever see them was when they're doing their job, executing a warrant, making an arrest. And so it's important that they learn that if you're in trouble, the man and woman in uniform is your friend. I mean, when I was growing up, if I was scared or in trouble, I wanted to see a police officer or a firefighter. And unfortunately, over the years, that's really been broken. And but we're trying little by little to help bring that trust back, at least in our community.
And I know you're in the process right now of getting specific dates for these Project Tips events coming up this summer, specific dates, and also picking out specific places in the community where you think that can start bridge that gap of communication.
We don't think we met with the police chief in the city of Rochester, and he and his people choose some locations where they feel there's a large number of unsolved crimes, and it would be good to have a presence there. And so they're the ones that determine the locations, and then we actually go and set up. And the thing I like best about it is it's mobile, because we held one time after the police officer was shot, and it was in February, and it was right before the kids were going to get out of school for February recess, and we decided we were going to have a Project Tips on Dayton Street. I think I just got warmed up yesterday. I mean, it was the coldest time you could believe. But what was amazing, people would come out and they'd thank us, because a lot of the kids, that's where they would sell their drugs during the day. And law-abiding people were afraid, And I remember one guy was driving this home health worker to where she was assigned to a patient to come in. And he thanked us, because it's the first time he ever dropped her off where he wasn't being hassled by these kids, trying to, because they sell drugs, because that's where they would get the money for the weekend. And it was funny, too, when we were doing the surveys, you go to the house and you ring the bell and nobody's answering. Right. But there are people there, and then you look by the window, and if you could read lips, you'd hate to see what these kids were calling all of us, because they weren't getting their money for that.
Yeah, not that day anyway. Sheriff O'Flynn, you have been a part of these Project Tips events. I know you've seen how successful they are and that they do work.
Absolutely. And it's obviously community confidence in first responders is so critical, and especially with the police, but obviously with the fire and EMS. But to be able to, as Gary said, have people walk away saying that the policeman or woman is my friend, and the young people seeing the policeman in a different setting than just responding to crime and just coming over or taking someone away in handcuffs. They get a whole different perspective, and I think over time we're starting to see that it's having a real positive effect.
And Drew, again firsthand, you got the uniform on. That can be intimidating, especially for kids. Here's a perfect opportunity for you to kind of break that wall down, break that barrier down.
You're absolutely right. The benefit that we have going out into the communities, that we get to get down on a personal level with members of the community, particularly the young people, where they see us, interacting with them on a social level, whether we talk about sports. I may try and promote football, the New York Giants, or whatever it may be. But the kids get to see us as real people. I mean, the stigma has been built where recently where the police, law enforcement is the enemy. That couldn't be furthest from the truth. We have families, we have children, we have parents that we just want to share our lives with these kids in the community to let them know that we're part of the community. We are part of you. We understand what you're going through to a certain extent. And anything that we can do to offer that help to them is really what it's all about. And this program that Gary talks about, tips, to see the look on the children's faces, particularly in the young people when we go out, and you'll get on your knee and get down to their level so they don't see the big bad uniform. They just see as Drew or Patrick O'Flynn or whoever it may be. That's really what the reward is about.
We've got just a couple of minutes left, Sheriff, and I want you to have a last word on this. And again, where you hope this goes with Project Exile, Project Tips, and the continued success that this program is having right here in your community.
Oh, absolutely. As I said, we've seen a downturn in the level of violence, especially in the inner city, but across the entire community. And I think this program in itself has been just a shining star to be able to bring the attention to the positive things going on in our community and some of the capabilities we have both in the public and private sector.
None of this happens without their cooperation, right, Gary? I mean, you need the cooperation, Monroe County Sheriff's Department, and all the other departments that we've talked about tonight as well. That's why this works.
What people should know is just the quality of the dedicated men and women who are every day trying to keep this community the kind of place we would all like to have. And there's a lot of challenges because despite all the great things that we have in this community, we also have some things that we're not really proud of. And one is the children who are living in poverty, the fact that our public school system needs a lot of work. Despite all the good things, and for a while, we had the highest per capita homicide rate of any city in New York State. And it was so hard to understand that here's a community that you had 3 logos. You could go any place in the world and see they had a rich heritage here and a good standard of living and one of the highest giving for the United Way. And yet we were having, this situation. So it's a challenge. And these men and women that are out there, this community can really be proud of. I mean, I've known the sheriff for a long, long time, and much before Project Exile and much before, just starting Camp Good Days. And when you meet these people and you realize who they are and the kinds of people they are, we're very blessed to have them in our community.
I think that's a good way to end it right there, Gary. Thanks so much. That's an excellent message. And we're going to learn more about Project Exile as we continue along throughout the next few months. I want to take a moment to thank the Monroe County Sheriff, Patrick O'Flynn, and also the Undersheriff for Monroe County, Drew Forsythe. Couple of busy guys. Thanks so much for taking time to join us, both of you.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Jason.
We've got more next time. That's all the time we have for this time. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back on Thursday, June 1st, with more on Camp Good Days and Special Times. Until then, thanks very much for listening on WYSL 92.1 FM and 1040 AM.